Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar where we will outline the call for innovation about measuring, monitoring, and verification of carbon management. My name is Jed McLean. I'm the Executive Director for the British Columbia Centre for Innovation and Clean Energy. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Omar Mauji, who's our venture partner at CICE, and Chantel Carden, who is the venture associate looking after this particular call. Next slide, please. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge with gratitude that we are operating and playing on the lands of the Inuit, First Nations, and Métis people throughout British Columbia, where everybody is living. We have different culture groups that we are interacting with. And we have respect for this and seek to move forward in partnership with First Nations wherever possible. The next slide, please. So the focus of today's session will be a very brief introduction from me about the CICE and what we're doing and how we work. And then we'll dig right into our call for innovation about measuring and monitoring and verification of carbon management. But just a few housekeeping issues beforehand. This will be 45 minutes. We'll keep to the time. We are recording this webinar, so you need to know that if you're asking questions, possibly your question will come through and be dealt with on the webinar, and then later on the webinar will be made available. There will be time for Q&A. We're trying to anticipate the questions, so we have prepared questions that we will be going through, but there will be lots of time for Q&A. Use the Q&A function or the chat function to send us your questions. If we don't get to them on the webinar, we will certainly get you a response sooner or later, preferably sooner, like right away. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you for giving us the time and consideration and thinking about this challenge, for working in this area and the possibility of working with CICE. So let's get going on the next slide, and just a quick background about CICE. But of course, before we begin, we're very interested to know what part of the province people are coming from. So just quickly, if you could take a second to give us a little tick as to whereabouts you're located. Are you in the Lower Mainland, outside? You're outside of British Columbia, or maybe you're phoning in from some exotic place in the world? Let us know if you wouldn't mind, and we'll just take a minute. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's very helpful for us. So let's just move on. We have approximately 60 people on this call. Next slide, please. For those who don't know, just a quick background on the Centre for Innovation and Clean Energy. We're a not-for-profit organization. We set our own agenda and operate independently of our members, who are the Government of British Columbia, Shell Canada, and Natural Resources Canada. And between those three groups, they have provided us with $105 million of funding, which really is intended to be used to help us accelerate the world toward net zero, mobilizing relationships with pretty much all sectors of British Columbia to fund the development and global scaling of made in BC clean energy technologies. So what we do is we really try to focus on early stage companies whose products and services that are being developed will become very important in the path to decarbonization, either in the near term or in some cases in the longer term. And today's call is very much focused on developing technologies that will help us manage carbon in the future. Today, this is maybe an unheard of thing, but rest assured, 10 years from now, this is going to be big business. And so we're very interested to get ahead of that and to see what we can do to stimulate that. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. Recently, since we started, we've looked at many companies. We've done several calls for proposals. The logos you can see are the suite of companies who've received funding from CICE. And we work principally in 4 areas. These will be low carbon bio and synthetic fuels. We work in battery and energy storage, carbon management, and low carbon hydrogen. And today's call is coming out of the carbon management discipline that we have within CICE. And the next, please. So what do? We don't just sort of pick out of a hat a topic and say, well, that would be fun. Let's do something in that topic area. In each of those 4 focus areas I mentioned, we're engaged in what we call intelligence, but it's with a small I. We're engaged in studying the fields and really trying to understand where there are needs that are not currently addressed with conventional technical solutions, or we don't get involved in policy very much, but we, by definition, we do understand policy situations. From our intelligence, we try to dig as deep as we can to look ahead and to look at what the challenges that we just don't see being met with conventional or existing approaches being met. And these can be technical, these can be structural business innovation needs, but we're trying to define these needs. And then we consult as broadly as we can with the community of people who are stakeholders, who have vested interests, who are already operating with government in terms of where they're going with their policy. And we test our ideas about where the needs are. And then from that, we define the directed call. So in the middle of this screen is where we are today with the call for measurement, monitoring, and verification. Some of you may be aware we have a concurrent call on the use of forest residue and the utilization of those forest residues in the province. These are tough areas. These are not obvious. It's not simple. There's no one technical solution. And CICE actually has no preconception as to what kind of solutions or proposals we're expecting. Innovation requires that we be open to all kinds of creative thinking. And so while we're steering the call, we're trying to keep the constraints as few as possible in how we go ahead. We publish some of our reports where we think there's news, where the broader community can benefit from our intelligence, but not everything. Sometimes just us getting up to speed doesn't really move us too far beyond what's already published. Sometimes, as in the case of our carbon management blueprint, we think we're actually pushing the state of knowledge a little bit. And so we're quite happy to share that with the broader community. So that's CICE in a nutshell and where we're going with it. So next slide, please. Out of that process, in particular with carbon management, we've developed this call for innovation on measurement, monitoring, and verification of carbon management. And I would just like to pass now the presentation to Chantal Carden, who is our venture associate, focused entirely on carbon management for her field of study. And she is leading this call together with Omar. So Chantal, over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jed, and thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Chantal Carden. I'm the Venture Associate for Carbon Management here at the Center for Innovation and Clean Energy. And I'm going to provide some context as to how we got to the open call for MMV technologies, the complexities and the barriers surrounding MMV, and BC's unique opportunity to advancing carbon management solutions through MMV pathways. And then I'll finish off the details of the call and answer some frequently asked questions around the proposals. And then I'll pass the mic to Omar, our venture partner, to run all of you through our funding process. So to begin with, as Jed mentioned earlier, in our blueprint development, it helped us identify opportunities and gaps for bringing decarbonization solutions to scale. Carbon management solutions engineered, such as direct air capture, nature-based, such as trees, seaweed, and seagrass, and hybrid solutions, such as ocean alkalinity or biochar. The blueprint went through and evaluated the entire value chain of carbon management, including capture, transportation, storage, or utilization, to understand the gaps and opportunities to scaling these solutions within the province of BC. This informed us here at the center on where CICE's funding would be best allocated towards in order to bring carbon management solutions to commercialization. So what was determined is that the scalability of these solutions is enhanced by market and policy accelerants, more notably the increase in global carbon markets. However, in order for us to unlock these accelerants identified within the blueprint, robust measuring, monitoring, and verification plans are vital. So a quick poll question for everyone attending today's call: which carbon management solution are you representing? Engineered, hybrid, or nature-based solutions? And if your answer is other, let us know what industry you're coming from in the chat. And we'll leave it up for a couple seconds. Okay, that's great. It's actually pretty even around the board, so it's really exciting for us, and we're looking forward to seeing what applications come through. Next slide. So while the market is evolving rapidly, there is growing recognition in the significance of MMV's role in shaping the GHG removal and reduction market and enabling carbon and financing. However, the complexities and barriers surrounding MMV and carbon management solutions encompass various factors that require attention, such as measurement accuracy, data availability and quality, additionality and permanence, as well as cost and resource considerations. Addressing these factors presents a significant business opportunity to guarantee the successful implementation, optimal effectiveness, and profitable commercialization of scaled carbon management solutions. And this is where the call fits in. Next slide. BC has a unique opportunity to lead in advancing carbon management solutions by establishing MMV pathways and innovation. Commercializing BC-based innovations will not only unlock the potential of innovative carbon management solutions, but also contribute to a comprehensive understanding of their impact on emission reduction, removal, and avoidance. These types of initiatives will benefit the carbon management value chain through local adoption and global expansion, while developing BC's based solutions in this needed and growing field. And this is the area that we really want to hone in on and understand what are the opportunities, what are the innovations, and what are the technologies currently existing within the province that CICE can support. Next slide, please. So within the last 7 months, CICE has gathered intelligence within the development of the blueprint and identified industry leaders to further identify gaps and opportunities to generate what ultimately became the scope of this call for innovation. With this vision, CICE is inviting proposals and will award up to $3 million in grant contributions to BC-based innovations to develop commercial pathways for MMV technologies, services, and business models. Project activities may include, but are not limited to, demonstration and pilot projects, innovative scalable solutions to enhance MMV, mitigation or monitoring technologies, and business model and innovations. I'll walk us through some frequently asked questions on project proposals. Next slide. So what makes a good project? CICE is looking for proposals that include scalable innovation that is replicable to create the greatest impact to enable global decarbonization. The key here is enabling. We are looking for MMV technologies that can better support the commercialization of reducing, removing, and avoiding carbon emissions. While we understand that the projects that are proposed within this call will not have direct GHG benefits, a good proposal will display how the technology will enable and further commercialization of GHG impact. Additionally, a good project will propose and advancing solutions with a TRL level of 4 to 9. As well, projects chosen will display environmental, social, governance, and economic impact. Next slide. So what types of solutions are eligible? Types of solutions that are eligible are proposals that display commercially viable pathways that enhance MMV of engineered, nature-based, or hybrid carbon management pathways, such as but not limited to mineralization in geological sequestration, ocean carbon removal, such as ocean alkalinity enhancement, coastal carbon management, such as blue carbon solutions, forestry management solutions, and soil carbon removal. Proposals that also include data management platforms that optimize the commercialization of carbon management solutions are also encouraged. While these are examples of projects we're looking to support, we are also interested in MMV technologies and solutions beyond this list. If your technology or innovation has impact for replication to enable GHG reduction, we want to hear about it, and we encourage you to apply. Next slide. So is this a call for innovative technologies or for developing MMV protocol? This is a frequently asked question. So this call specifically is to support the commercialization and replication of innovative MMV technologies that will optimize and enhance the impact of carbon management solutions. While we understand that many of you are working to achieve the growth of MMV protocols, CICE's funds are specific to supporting the scaling of innovations. Next slide. How are you evaluating the strength of MMV solutions? At CICE, we are evaluating applicants based on their potential impact to enabling and scaling carbon management solutions. And as part of our due diligence, we have partnered with a GHG verification team to support in determining potential impact and scale of proposed solutions. So what we're doing is basically understanding how your technology can create the impact to enable GHG reduction, avoidance, or removal. And that's what we want to see. So I'll now pass the mic to Omar to walk you through our funding process and a number of frequently asked questions surrounding CICE's funding process.
Thank you, Chantal. So going through the application process, obviously from Chantal's presentation, you can see kind of months and months of research have gone into the scoping stage of our program to reach where we are right now. We are now entering the application stage, and our applications will open on June 29th, 2023. The application will include an expression of interest and a 5-minute video submission. This application process is opened up until July 28th, 2023, in which we will then make selections for stage 1 applicants. They will be informed on August 4th, 2023. Those successful applicants will then be required to fill out a detailed proposal, which is the base of our assessment for the detailed due diligence and awarding stage. They will be given up until August 24th, 2023 to submit that detailed proposal, for which we will then do internal and external due diligence on the projects themselves. And successful applicants will be notified of the funding decision of those projects on October 6th, 2023. So the due diligence process does go through various stages, as well as finally concluding with an investment committee meeting for selection. Next slide. So we'll be asking a final poll question. Are you applying to the MMV call for carbon management? It's a yes or no or unsure outcome. All right, so a majority are yes, and some are unsure, but we hope that this presentation can kind of move you towards uncertainty to a application. Next slide. In terms of some of the questions relating to how we fund and what we fund, one of the main questions is what's the maximum amount of funding per project? So this particular call has a size of funding up to $3 million for the entire direct call, which means we'll be selecting multiple projects with the call, which means we don't expect proponents to require a total funding amount of $3 million requested from CICE. We want to be able to fund as many solutions as possible. So keep that in mind when requesting money from CICE. If you're submitting a $3 million request, we just want you to understand that we are prioritizing the multiple solution method versus the one single solution. Next slide. In terms of when can the funding be used, so the final funding decision will be October 6th, 2023. So anytime after that date, funding can be dispersed. We expect that most of the projects or all of the projects will actually have a project started within 6 months of that signing date of October 6, 2023. And the funding schedule will be dependent on the company itself. The company will report milestones to us, in which once those milestones are completed, we will reimburse the costs at that milestone date for funding. Next slide. In terms of how the funding can be used, so I specify this very blatantly, it is associated with the project. So any costs that are directly associated with the projects are funding that can be used. That includes salaries attributed to the project, consultants and project management attributed to the project, any CapEx associated with the specific project itself, and any orders or other operating costs associated with the project specifically. Next slide. In terms of what cannot be funded or what is outside of scope, we are not looking to fund day-to-day business operations, and this is not an investment. So it's a project-related funding source, and therefore we will not fund day-to-day business operations, any capital expenditures outside of the project itself, including any advertising or business promotion or human resources and overhead associated with the company as a whole. Next slide. What are the rules on stacking limits and leveraging funds from other programs? The beauty of CICE itself is that we do not have any stacking limitations. We want to encourage proponents that are applying to our program to have as much funding as possible from different sources. So there's no limitation on our end in terms of stacking. In terms of what needs to be considered when using CICE funding, you need to look at other government programs and see whether they have rules against stacking for our funding. So on our end, you're completely in the clear for stacking. Excellent. Can organizations have more than one application or project funded with CICE? The answer is yes. One organization can apply for different projects and have multiple funded projects under CICE's programs. However, understand with this call, we don't want 100 or 50 applications for that matter from one proponent. We want these applications to be well thought out and fleshed out in addition to the 5-minute video. So we just ask that, if you have a very good idea and have it planned and ready, that it be submitted for our application. And now we will go into any other questions that have been provided throughout the webinar.
Great, thanks team. That was awesome. There have been a number of questions that have come in, and I can start off with this one here from Ryan. Are non-CO2 GHG management technologies in consideration? And maybe Chantel, you want to start us off with an answer to that one.
Yeah, really great question. So CICE's funding program for MMV is going to specifically prioritize CO2 removal, avoidance, or reductions. However, that being said, we will consider anything beyond that in terms of application. So we do encourage you to apply because we do want to see what's out there for innovation, and we do want to see the impact that your technology can actually enable.
Okay. Another one, actually, there's a couple of questions that are around this. Do the projects have to be in BC or can they be anywhere in Canada? We'll start with that one. And maybe Omar, you can lead us off.
Yeah, so the projects do not have to be specifically in BC, but the applicant for that project must be BC based. And obviously, we'd prefer there to be a benefit in BC. So if any IP development is in BC and jobs are created in BC, that's a plus. Great.
And another follow on to that, how much of a BC presence does a company need to be eligible? Who would like to answer that? Jed, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Technically, we should be funding British Columbia-based companies. So very large BC presence. However, we have this tension that we deal with in that what we're really interested in is climate benefit. So we try to be as creative as possible in the interpretation of the parameters that we operate in to enable the maximum innovation. So what I would suggest is that if you're operating out of Asiat, Greenland, and you are working on the Greenland ice sheet measurement and verification of carbon, I would suggest it's not a good application for CICE. If you're doing work with organizations in British Columbia and there is a very clear, strong benefit to this province, yeah, it might be worth a try and see. What would be good would be to contact Chantel or Omar, or even me if you need to, but I think you're in good hands with the other two, and just have a chat about that and to see how close in scope things are. I would also point out that the first stage of application that Omar described is actually very lightweight. The intention is to invite as many applications and make the application process relatively simple so that we can get lots of ideas on the table and really help new ideas come forward. So we're deliberately designing this process so the first stage is easy. It's mostly production of a short video, a 5-minute video, almost like a TikTok thing, but bit more than that. No dancing, please. And then once we winnow down to things that look feasible and desirable from the point of view, then we have a real competition. And that's when we get into the really serious application stage. which is the second stage that Omar described. It's a very fast process that's sort of progressive in terms of the effort. So all that to say, if you're from outside of BC, but you think there's a strong case for this being a BC benefit, it's probably, I would suggest, worth your while to run it up the flagpole with us and see. And our intent is to encourage and enable. It's not just to gate, right?
Great. Thanks, Jed. Are there any restrictions on company type? For example, not-for-profit, academic, or profit? Chantel, how about you answer that one?
No restriction from nonprofits or for-profit entities. If you're an academic institution, once again, we are looking at TRL 4 to 9, and we are looking at funding BC-based companies. So it's very dependent on the application we receive. And I'll leave it at that because, as Jed mentioned, we do make exceptions depending on the application, depending on the impact that we see, and depending on essentially the technology that comes forward. And Jed, you look like you want to step in.
Yeah, sure. Just we generally do not get engaged in funding research. It needs to be post-research. It needs to be moving to commercialization. There's a question about not-for-profit. And so commercialization and not-for-profit may actually be a challenge. But let's just say then implementation of the technology or the business process that's being developed. So long as you're making that transition, that's fine. But if it's a question of some, basic or even a very applied research, but nonetheless, the outcome is going to be some research papers and some conference presentations, that's certainly out of scope.
And I'll repeat again that we do need the innovation to be scalable and repeatable. So implementation projects are encouraged, but we want to be able to implement this project and technology in other jurisdictions to enable that impact.
Yeah.
Okay. The next couple of questions here, I'm going to lump them all together. Can the start date of projects extend beyond the 6 months? And are there a minimum, maximum amount of time for a project period? Omar, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, so we will obviously prioritize projects that start within the 6-month period from the funding date. In terms of the length of projects that we expect, it depends on, however long the project takes. We generally have a measurement of around 18 months to 2 years on project life for funding, but that's kind of our restrictions there.
Okay. Someone is asking, where can we find the requirements for what needs to be in the video? Chantel.
Absolutely. There is a link in the chat right now currently up on our website. It's basically the call for innovation for MMV of carbon management. So if you take a look in the chat, there's a link right there, and we'll be sending a link out to all attendees afterwards for further information for the EOI application.
Okay, and on that note as well, there have been a few questions about whether or not we're sharing the presentation slides. I don't see why not. We'll have them posted on that page as well for folks that want to reference them. Okay, are technologies that facilitate the decarbonization of the built environment eligible? And Chantel, we'll go to you for that one too.
They can be, absolutely. So once again, we want to focus on innovation of impact. So if there is an innovative piece to monitoring emissions in the built environment that hasn't been done before, and it's going to enable further GHG removals or reductions, then that will be considered.
Can I just add there, though, just a caveat that this is not a call for GHG reduction technology proposals. This is a call for measurement, monitoring, and verification technologies, which are going to enable things like carbon trading, and they will enable moving to a more regulated market, which are all things that are needed to happen in a world which moves toward net zero, which is decarbonized. So the MMV technologies play a very strong supporting role, and we think that there's a great opportunity here for British Columbia-based companies to rally together and to start to develop a core of capability in this growing, and it has to grow, this growing business opportunity. So we're very excited about it, but it's not about technology. We do lots of that with our other calls. This one's about the MMV technologies. It's adjacent to the GHG reduction itself.
Great. Here's another one. We want to understand if higher potency atmospheric methane removals are in scope, which would generate a CO2 equivalent offset. And I think this is along the same lines of the other question that came in, which is, are non-CO2 GHG management technologies in consideration? Chantel, do you want to answer that?
As mentioned, they are in consideration. CICE is prioritizing CO2 MMV technologies, but that being said, we are welcoming anything beyond carbon for MMV as well. But just keep in mind that we are prioritizing CO2 removal, reductions, and avoidance.
Great. What is the expected timeline for impact? Jed, why don't you lead that one?
Well, the ideal timeline for impact is tomorrow. The expected timeline for impact might be 10 to 15 years. I don't think there's a one size fits all here. We would be delighted if we could see impact from some of these projects in a 2 to 4 year time period. But given that we don't know what applications we're going to see, I think it's difficult to answer the question in a blanket form. So I'll just leave that ambiguity there, but the nearer term, the better. Impact from this call would be measured initially in terms of adoption of the MMV technique. Imagine if somebody is developing a sensor or some kind of ground truthing means, to actually see that starting to be taken up by customers in whatever form they come up for the business being proposed, that's looking like impact beginning. The actual measurement of GHG impact, that's dependent on an awful lot of things, and I don't think we can put a crisp date on that.
Okay. What if the project is well underway? Will you fund? Omar.
If the project is already underway, a scope of the remaining project would then have to be applied for. Again, we prefer that funding for projects happen within that 6-month date of application. So again, those will be given priority. However, again, we're not going to say no if a project is already underway, as long as the scope of that project is highlighted in the application for the remaining amount.
Okay.
Omar, can you just clarify though, we would not retroactively support?
Yeah, we do not provide funding for costs already incurred.
Okay. Does clean energy generation qualify? Jed?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we've said it already, and that is, this is about MMV technology. There will be other calls. There are other calls for things like clean energy technology, say in hydrogen, or the other call that we have going on right now on forest residue management is all about technologies to manage the residue. And that actually is a very large clean energy component to it. This is about technologies for measurement, monitoring, and verification of carbon management solutions in whatever form they take, so that you can verify and prove in a carbon market that you actually did make a difference in atmospheric carbon. And right now, there are very few technologies that and systems that are in place that allow you to create that proof. And sooner or later, the burden of proof is going to be on implementers of carbon removal technologies to prove to others that they actually did what they claim. And that's the gap that we're trying to see if we can address by helping companies to enter that space.
Okay, thank you. What percentage of the costs will be covered? Omar.
So again, that depends. Once you get to the final application stage, you will highlight the total cost of the project, as well as costs requested to be covered by CICE. And then that portion, if approved, will be the amount that's covered. So there's no specific amount or specific percentage. It's all done through the budgeting that's provided from the company applying.
Omar, can you, off the top of your head, remember the statistic associated with what our past funding ratios have been?
Yeah, so in terms of ratios, for every $1 that we've funded, there has been outside funding of just around $4, I
Right.
believe. Yeah.
So we don't have a hard and fast rule, but we do have a kind of a track record of where we're going. We would never say no to funding 100% of a brilliant idea. However, with respect, not all ideas are that brilliant. So we're looking for matching, right?
Excellent. Here's an interesting question. If an applicant falls under multiple streams, for example, fuels, forestry, waste, and MMV, would you prefer this bundled into one application? Chantal.
Depends on the technology, I guess would be the answer. If it fits within the MMV call, I would suggest apply for the MMV call. If it fits within the forest residue, if it fits within the forest residue waste, apply for that call. That being said, it all depends on what funding you're looking to receive for what technology. So if you're looking for funding for your MMV technology, apply for the MMV call. This is, once again, we are very flexible with how we work with our funding. But yeah, honestly, it just depends on the application and the technology that you're looking for funding from CICE.
Great. And there was a follow-up. Can we apply for MMV for use in the waste residue call? And I think your answer covers that off as well.
Yes.
But if there's more questions about that, feel free to contact us directly. Alrighty. And then, hello, CICE. Would you provide a hypothetical example of a project for which this call has been designed? Chantal, again, I think this is you.
I can see. Hi, Sean. Great to have you on this call. Yeah, really great question. So an example of a project to be, without leaning in towards project prescription base, we could do ocean carbon removal monitoring. So if you have technology that can actually analyze emissions being removed through ocean carbon removal technology that currently exists within your organization or someone else's organization, I think that's something that we would support. So it's really just having technology that can measure or monitor or evaluate emission reductions, removal, and avoidance. And that's the type of project that we're looking for. I don't want to be too prescriptive in terms of what we're actually going to be looking for, because we do want to highlight innovation and solutions across the board.
Okay. Would you match funding provided by a First Nation innovation incubator involved in the project? Jed, do you want to answer that one?
Yes.
I'm loving the one-word answers. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's a fair question, and the answer, I think, is pretty clear. Yes, we'd be very excited about that. Yeah.
Okay, Omar, did you want to weigh in on that?
I would also just say, keeping in mind the fact that this call is up to $3 million. So it has to be within the budget of this call.
Fair enough. Okay, another question about potential technologies. Is technology for measuring and monitoring carbon emissions, but not yet verification, eligible for this call?
Absolutely. So yeah, we understand that a lot of these technologies are going to be on the current verification protocols that exist and the current verification models that exist, and we encourage you to apply. We really want to see what's innovative, what's out there, and what can actually create that nuanced carbon removal impact. So that project would absolutely be eligible for this call.
Excellent. Good. And being aware of everybody's time here, we're at 10:40. I think at this point we can possibly wrap it up. If we did not answer your question, by all means, we'll be going through the chat and the Q&A that has come in. We plan on addressing anything that we were not able to address during this time on this call directly as well. And if you do have other further questions, feel free to email us at any time. Chantal, maybe you want to wrap us up here.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to thank everybody for your time today and attending today's webinar. We're officially accepting applications on Friday. And if you have any questions throughout the process, please respond to the attached email, and either me or Omar can work with you on getting your question answered.
Okay. And the question that came in about the best email for this specific call, there is one on the slide that's actually showcased right now, the MMV 2023 at cice.ca. I think that's probably the best one.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks
Great.
so much, everyone.
Excellent.